Coucou, salut, bonjour. Welcome to Fantasy Film Ball. My name is Matt. It is currently 6:30 a.m. on Monday, May 20th, and I am taking a pleasant little stroll down the beach here. My first movie is at 9 a.m. I'm going to be seeing Dog on Trial. I have a great day ahead, and I'm so excited to share all of it. But for now, I'm just going to go enjoy the beautiful views of Cannes. It's a brand new day. I saw 6 films yesterday. Didn't have any time to sit down and talk about them yesterday. So I think I'm gonna do that now instead in front of the beautiful Palais steps. So the first film that I saw yesterday was Dog on Trial. It follows the story of a lawyer who takes on unwinnable cases, and this time she takes on the case of a dog who has bit 3 people. I'm not a big fan of dog movies. This is a genre that just lends itself to over-sentimentality, mostly because using a dog in a movie is basically a cheat code to wringing emotions, wringing tears out of the viewers. And here, that's exactly what the movie is doing. The only thing that makes this different from Marley and Me or A Dog's Purpose is that this has sort of a false veneer of artistry in front of it. This dramatic string music, the camera work is quite good, but below that surface, it's just the same stuff that we've seen in a billion Hollywood movies marketed to go straight to DVD, to make you cry and make you think, man, I love dogs. Dogs are so cute. If you really love dog movies, you're probably gonna like this. The dog is really cute, but otherwise this film was just so mediocre, and I would not recommend giving this one a watch. The next film I watched was Jia Zhangke's film, Caught by the Tides. Now, if you've been following the channel through the Cannes Parallel Challenge, you'll know that I recently watched and loved Jia Zhangke's film, A Touch of Sin, which I think is one of the best anthology films that I've ever seen. Caught by the Tides is an entirely different beast. In fact, it's a little bit of a stretch to even call this a narrative film whatsoever. This film has been described as following a woman as she celebrates China's age of prosperity over 20 years through song and dance, and meanwhile is also tracking down a lost lover who vanished to go find work in another province. But the story here is completely incidental. It's not important. This movie is largely non-narrative, using a lot of documentary footage, a lot of archival footage, using the director's previous films as a groundwork, as a skeleton on which the rest of this film is built, to paint a picture of the last 20 years in Chinese society. This 20 years, since the year 2000, has been labeled the age of prosperity. Looking at these images, all I could think is this really prosperous? Is this what prosperity looks like? Ultimately, Caught by the Tides becomes a film about progress and what progress looks like. Everything gets flashier, but nothing really gets better. Are the lives of these people on screen improving? It doesn't look like it. The film's very slow burn edit, the focus on documentary images, the lack of narrative makes it very mysterious throughout. I didn't know what I was going to think about the movie, honestly, until it was over. This isn't a film that spoon feeds you what to think about it right away. It's challenging, it's complex, and for that reason, this is one that I know I'm going to be thinking about for a long time after the festival, and will probably need to re-watch in order to fully understand. Because this film uses so much of Jia Zhangke's other films. It's drawing on Ash's Purest White, it's drawing on The World, it's drawing on many other films that I haven't even seen. All of these sources of archive footage become a portrait of time passing in China's past 20 years, and also, of course, in Jia's filmography. So in a sense, Caught by the Tides almost becomes a little bit of a Russian doll. It's a film using the context, using the ideas of many other films before it. So if you want to watch this one, I definitely recommend diving into Jia's filmography, as I will be doing before a rewatch down the road. I also have to say that the use of different formats was really compelling because it's using all of this old footage. Every time we move through time, it feels like the format we're watching completely changes. It goes from a DV early digital camera to a early 2010s digital, and finally to a very crisp modern digital. And the way that these styles were integrated and replicated with new footage as well was exceptionally well done. The next film I watched was Emilia Perez, the new film by Jacques Audiard. Emilia Perez seems to be one of the most present films in the discourse around the festival. Honestly, it's kind of wild that this even exists. If you told me this idea 2 months ago, I would have said absolutely not. There's no way that anyone would ever make a movie like that. But here it is. Emilia Perez is a trans cartel musical. This is a wildly ambitious, massive film. It follows the story of a lawyer in Mexico City who is hired by a high-up member of one of the major cartels who wants this lawyer's help in vanishing and finding a new identity as a woman. I'm a major sucker for musicals, and this definitely hit the spot for me. The majority of the songs were really, really well done, with influences coming from EDM, from opera, from Broadway, from reggaeton, and from traditional mariachi music. And so with so many influences, you could get something that's very confused tonally, but I think that this really always knows what it is, it knows what it's going for, and something I really liked is that it can both be wildly campy while also taking itself very seriously. It really strikes that balance quite well. And the performances are really well done. Biggest props have to go out to Carla Sofia Gascon, who portrays all the stages of this role, all the aspects of this role in a compelling and lived-in way. The moments where she is playing a cartel member are terrifying, and you see glimmers of that violent cartel boss constantly throughout the performance. Selena Gomez also really surprised me throughout this. She is wonderfully unpredictable, playing the wife of the main character. The dance sequences are well choreographed. The action sequences are exciting and thrilling. For some negatives, the story is told in a way that doesn't offer many new surprises. You kind of know what to expect. It kind of becomes Mrs. Doubtfire with a Sicario angle, which is wild, it's fun, but it does hit the beats that I know I expected from it. And the next film I saw was Rumours, directed by Guy Maddin, Evan Johnson, and Galen Johnson, the maverick trio of weirdo filmmakers from Winnipeg, Canada. Rumours is about a meeting of the G7 leaders who are meeting up to discuss a crisis that we never learn exactly what it is. While meeting up in the woods of Germany, they find themselves abandoned by their staff and hunted by mummies in the night. Yes, this is a goofy horror comedy, which I was not aware of before going in. Guy Maddin is one of the most celebrated art house filmmakers out there at this point for films like My Winnipeg, The Forbidden Room, The Green Fog. He is a staple of museum filmmaking, essentially, as his films are often too weird and too wild to get actual theatrical distribution. And so Rumours is a very big jump for him at this point, because not only is this a more mainstream horror comedy, it's also starring Cate Blanchett, and I gotta say, I cannot believe that they got Cate Blanchett to do this stuff. It's a mix of what you would get if you crossed over Doctor Strangelove with a B movie like Return of the Living Dead. There's an absurdity here that I know I absolutely adored. It was goofy as hell, never took itself seriously for a second, and played around with a lot of Guy Maddin's classical fascination with the cinema of old. But I've also seen a lot of people who really hated this film, who felt it was a total waste of time. Does it deliver on the horror elements of it? Absolutely not. Does it deliver on the comedy elements? I think so, but other people definitely wouldn't. The person right beside me walked out about 30 minutes in. But if you're down to get a little bit weird, to watch some goofball stereotypes of world leaders run away from mummified corpses, this is a weird, wild time, and I enjoyed myself the entire way through. The next film I watched was My Sunshine, a Japanese film. This tells the story of two young children who are ice dancers. The film focuses on a young boy who struggles in other sports. He struggles in baseball, he struggles in hockey, and one day he stumbles upon figure skating and he becomes fascinated by it. And seeing himself in the child, this coach takes him under his wing and helps him to learn to figure skate. But conflict arises when the young girl who's been figure skating for years years, feels neglected by the coach's newfound motivation to teach this boy to figure skate, while focusing less attention on her. The film is largely, in my mind, about wanting to inspire the next generation and seeing yourself in the young and seeing the path that you took and wanting to help others to either avoid it or follow it. Ultimately, this film is very cute, it's very tender, it has a nice rhythm to it, reminiscent of the films of Hirokazu Koreeda or Yasuhiro Ozu. It's quaint and lovely, but it's not substantial. The final film of yesterday was C'est Pas Moi, the new film by Leos Carax. This 40-minute long short film is a bit of a video essay about the works and the life of Leos Carax, but it's done in a very tongue-in-cheek experimental style. If you've seen any of Jean-Luc Godard's late career work, like Histoire du cinéma or The Image Book or Film Socialisme, this is exactly like that. Carax feels like he's aping on Jean-Luc Godard's style, parodying it in a way, making fun of the overlaid text that is so jarring. I liked this tongue-in-cheek approach to this style. I'm not a huge fan of late-stage Godard outside of Goodbye to Language, which I think is a masterpiece. But for the most part, I find this style of just random images with random text on top to be deeply pretentious, to feel less like the work of a renowned master, and to feel much more like the work of a film student who's trying to state their importance. So I did appreciate how C'est Pas Moi was kind of taking the piss out of this style, but it still dipped into pretension very often. But it's only 40 minutes, it goes by very fast, and it has some interesting ideas. If you're a fan of Leos Carax's other films like Holy Motors, like Annette, like The Lovers on the Bridge, there is going to be quite a lot in here for you to enjoy. For me, I'm not a huge fan of the work of Leos Carax, so my understanding of it really comes from a surface level understanding of what he's parodying through the works of Jean-Luc Godard. Now, if you really like those late Godard films, then you're going to love this one, probably. You're gonna have a blast. For me, it was a bit of a mixed bag. All right, and that is it for my discussion of yesterday's films, and now I'm going to go check out today's films. It is now Tuesday, May 21st. This morning, I'm going to be watching The Apprentice. I'm going to be watching The Shrouds. Then I'm going to be taking a break for a little bit, and I'm going to be coming to explore the marché for a little bit, see the pavilions that I've been neglecting, finally experience a little bit of the actual festival rather than just experiencing the IMAX theater, the goddamn IMAX theater that is draining my life force. So anyways, we'll talk later. Now is the moment when I should be saying, I just watched The Apprentice and here are my thoughts, but I'm actually recording this 2-3 days afterwards because I just sat down to edit and there was so much wind on the audio that I just have to redo the whole damn thing. So I just watched The Apprentice 3 days ago. Here are my thoughts on it. I was a little bit nervous going in despite having really high hopes in advance because I'd heard some pretty negative things from reviews. But upon watching it, I loved this movie. I thought it was such a good time. This is Ali Abbasi's new Donald Trump biopic that looks at the creation of the monster through Donald's mentorship with Roy Cohn, the infamously sleazy New York City lawyer. Now, I'm not a fan of biopics. I've said that many other times. I find the biopic formula to be really stale, recycled time and time again. I don't like when a movie gives me the Wikipedia synopsis of someone's life, and I really appreciated that The Apprentice didn't attempt to do that whatsoever. Instead, it zeroes in on one small detail and manages to tell you a whole lot about Donald Trump, not through his story, but specifically through Roy Cohn. I found the screenplay to be very cutting and witty, combining some elements of Aaron Sorkin-esque writing alongside a visual style that felt very similar to something like American Hustle by David O. Russell. And the main thing that's being showed off here is the performances, specifically that of Sebastian Stan as Donald Trump, who I've never seen be better in any film. He is exceptional, and what he does with this performance is rather than just doing an impression, he finds the humanity in the character of Trump. He imitates the mannerisms, but he also shows someone who's grappling with his desire to be a winner, who gradually pushes his humanity more and more to the side so that he can become the winner, the killer that he wants to be. And throughout the performance, we see moments where this humanity returns, where it pushes through the lying, the manipulation. It comes to the surface every once in a while and then is promptly shoved right back down. And to say that he's not just doing an impression doesn't mean he's not doing an impression. His impression is really strong here, and it develops through the film too, where it starts off very subtle. You almost don't recognize the small details of this work. But as the film goes on and as Donald grows older, these mannerisms become more pronounced, and it gets a little bit closer to the Trump that we know. And then there's Jeremy Strong, who plays Roy Cohn, and he is magnificent and does the impossible. He makes you feel bad for a sleazeball like Roy Cohn. There's all these layers of self-loathing, which he has masked under a performance-like role of playing this winner, of playing this ruthless, vicious person who expects loyalty from everyone and gives it to no one. It's a layered, multi-dimensional performance that I think is going to go down as one of the best of the year. And it's not just to say that it's just the performances here that are really standing out. I thought the direction was really strong. Ali Abbasi is taking a lot of cues from network TV from the late 70s all the way through to the 90s. There's a distinct analog look to the film that looks like it was filmed on old TV cameras. At times we see the scanning lines going across the screen. This does not look like a slick average biopic. There is texture to the image here. There's grain. There's a quality that you don't often see in Hollywood filmmaking. So all this to say, it's a crowd pleaser. It's enjoyable. And if you've heard all the negative reviews about it, go and make your own mind up. I think this one is going to surprise a lot of people from what the reception was here to what people are actually going to think about it when they get a chance to see it for themselves.
It's been decades since I had to seduce a woman.
You'll never replace Becca.
I'm not trying to.
And the next film I saw was The Shrouds, directed by David Cronenberg. This film is about the loss of his own wife. It is a self-portrait of grief, and it follows a man named Karsh who has created a new form of cemetery technology that allows bereaved families to watch the decaying corpse of their loved one in real time on the gravestone. This is a twisted idea that is up there with some of Cronenberg's best concepts, as Cronenberg has always been interested in the temporality of the body and the way that the body in itself relates to cinema, in that cinema is something that moves through time with a distinct beginning and end, the same way that a body does. This is a theme that has been recurring through David Cronenberg's career. And here it's so fascinating how he uses images looking in on the constantly decaying corpse to create almost a cinema of the dead, that not only are our lives moving through time, but our deaths are too. And it makes me think a lot of images of the dead, looking back at old photographs or home videos or even Facebook profiles of people who have since died. Those images are preserved perfectly forever, capturing a moment that we can always look back on and always remember what someone was like when they were alive. In a way, cinema can make people immortal. What Cronenberg's doing is he's spinning this idea. Rather than having the image preserve the life of someone forever, the image is actually decomposing alongside the corpse of the dead. It's a fascinating concept, a great body horror jumping point. Unfortunately, this fantastic jumping point, this great premise for a film, gets buried under layers and layers of shitty conspiracies. It goes from a beautiful reflection on David Cronenberg's own grief to becoming a film about people running around trying to figure out what government planted things on the bones. It's just trash. It feels like it belongs in a straight-to-DVD movie from the early 2000s. The idea here deserves so much better than what the plot ends up doing for it. For the first hour or so, I thought it was fantastic. I was really excited to see this story develop, but the direction it went in, the conflating of sexuality and conspiracy, it's nonsense. It's nonsense, and this disappointed me a lot by the end. I just saw 2 more movies and I'm about to head home. So the first film to talk about is Limonov, The Ballad. This is a film by Kirill Serebrennikov, and it stars Ben Whishaw as the revolutionary, dissident, author, poet, bum, whatever you want to label him, he's done it. Eddie Limonov. And this film tells his story as he runs away from Russia and spends some time in New York, spends some time in Paris, bounces around, does all the things. This is a big, expansive biopic going through the whole life of someone who just bounces from place to place, who is completely undefinable, which is why it doesn't feel entirely fitting to have such a formulaic film tackling the subject matter. This goes beat for beat exactly what you expect from a biography. And like I was mentioning earlier with The Apprentice, I don't love when I feel like I could just get everything out of a film from reading the Wikipedia bio. But it's clear why Kirill Serebrennikov wanted to tell this story in the first place. If you don't know, Serebrennikov is a Russian filmmaker who, for his political films, his political works, was placed under house arrest multiple times over the last decade. And actually, only recently in 2022, he fled the country for good. So Limonov is his first film made outside of Russia, and it's clear that he's using this character to represent himself as a dissident artist, as a political revolutionary punk who cannot be boxed into a regime's ideas of what art should be. And for a character like this, it is such a shame that, again, the film is so formulaic throughout. But one thing that elevates the film above and beyond is how virtuosic the filmmaking is. Kirill Serebrennikov is working at the top of his game, delivering incredible set design, amazing blocking, staging, and camera movement. The way that the camera floats and moves around, absolutely breathtaking, formal mastery. There's one scene in particular that absolutely blew my mind, where the camera follows Ben Whishaw through an abandoned building in which each of the walls is painted with different years on them, and it takes us through about a decade to 15 years worth of events throughout Europe. As Ben Whishaw walks from room to room, kicking through walls, jumping through windows, going out into the street where revolution is taking place. This shot is magnificent. And the whole film has that sort of energy, this sort of revolutionary punk aesthetic to it. And like I keep saying, it's just such a shame that such amazing filmmaking, such a crazy story was paired with a script that never feels interested in diving beyond the impressions of moments of someone's life. And the final film that I saw today was Santosh. This is an Indian film with some hints of film noir in it. And the film tells the story of a policewoman who is tasked with finding the person responsible for the death of a teenage girl. And the film goes into all sorts of moral gray areas in the search for justice. It's asking a lot of questions about how far people are willing to go to find justice. And also if justice is just completely futile in a society that is based on caste. There's one line in particular in the film that absolutely gave me chills, and it's when one of the officers says that there's 2 types of untouchables in this country. There are the people that no one wants to touch and the people that can't be touched. It's a film about the pursuit of justice being futile when the people that you're trying to get justice against seemingly are above the law, especially in relation to their victims. And while this was such a powerful theme for a film, and it conveyed it so well. Problem is that this is a 2-hour movie, and it takes about 90 minutes to get to a point where those themes even begin to click into place. For the most part, this is a slow burn crime movie. And when I say slow burn, I mean a real slow burn. It takes a very long time to get anywhere. And so while ultimately I'm pretty positive on this movie because of how impactful it was in the end, I just wish that it got to that point a little bit sooner and spent a little bit less time meandering through the investigation part of the noir. But all in all, this has been a little bit of a down day for me. You know, the one film that I really loved today was The Apprentice, and everything else was to fine. So hopefully tomorrow is a little bit better. I get to see The Substance and Parthenope as well, so I cannot wait for those films. And you'll see my reactions to those very shortly. Good morning, everyone. So I just did the stupidest thing imaginable. There are 2 things you need to get into a screening at Cannes. Number 1, a ticket. Number 2, your badge. Your badge tells them that you are who you say you are, that you are accredited to be here. I forgot my badge. So I have a 9 a.m. screening of The Substance, and I have to figure out how to get my badge. Thankfully, my wonderful, absolutely lovely mother is currently on her way to a nearby train station so that I can rush to meet her, pick up my badge, and hopefully get into the movie on time. Look, here's the thing. It's been almost a full week now of mornings where I'm up at 5:30 a.m. I deserve to make one big mistake at this point, provoked by being too tired to remember what's going on in the morning. I'm exhausted, and I just hope that I actually am able to see this first movie. All right, it worked. My wonderful and very kind mother, after a lot of me stressing out and running around, brought me my badge, so I'm good to go into The Substance. Oh God, don't do a lot of walking when you're wearing really nice shoes. You'll hurt yourself. I have blisters all over my feet. I'm in pain.
Have you ever dreamt of a better version of yourself? Younger, more beautiful.
All right, it's the end of my day. I'm hanging out on the beach and I am ready to talk some movies. Okay, so after my whole scare with my badge, the first movie I saw was The Substance. This is the much buzzed about horror film directed by Coralie Farja, and it tells the story of a faded celebrity who over the years has gone from being an Oscar-winning actress to now being the host of a TV fitness jazzercise program. And as she's now aging, she is at risk of losing this as well, as the producers of the show now decided that they want someone younger and prettier to take on the role. But a solution comes when the main character is recommended to take The Substance. The Substance is a miracle drug which will clone and replicate her into a newer, younger, prettier version of herself. But the catch is that her old self will also remain, and the 2 of them have to exist in tandem, sharing 7 days on, 7 days off. And they're warned that if they disrupt the balance of 7 days old, 7 days young, terrible things will happen. And being a horror movie, terrible things happen. This is one of the most gory, demented, absolutely fucking twisted horror movies that I have ever seen in my life. I fucking loved it. It's somewhere between The Shining, Carrie, The Fly by David Cronenberg, and a Katy Perry music video. Like, it's got these sort of pop visuals to it that juxtaposes with the pure horror and disgusting work of everything else. It's a really, really interesting choice to make the film so colorful, so bright, so poppy, and then also make it so absolutely revolting in the makeup effects, in the blood, the gore. I swear, through about like half of this movie, my jaw was on the floor. I was sitting there like this. The person beside me had their hand over their eyes for like a solid chunk of this film. It just keeps getting crazier and crazier. This is a real like picture of Dorian Gray-esque story. In The Substance, the painting itself becomes the main character. It's a monster movie in which the concept of beauty and youth itself actually is the beast. It is the monster. The constant chase after youth, chase for immortality, becomes the thing that leads to the horrifying downfall throughout. And there's such a highly stylized drive through this film. The energy is phenomenal. The directorial choices made by Coralie Farja are so creative, even from the opening. The first scene, we see the building of a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, which gradually becomes faded and forgotten. It's a really creative way to set up this idea of faded stars seeking to make themselves last forever. It is a criticism of the revolving door structure of Hollywood, where the established are frequently shunted out to make way for newer, younger performers. It also just boasts some of the best prosthetic makeup work that I've ever seen. If the Oscars weren't fucking cowards, they would nominate this for makeup. But they're cowards, and they won't. See the substance. See it immediately. Do it. What are you waiting for? You're waiting for it to release. That's fine. Well, when it releases, don't wait. See it.
Tu peux m'expliquer ce que ça t'apporte de faire ça?
Ben, ça me rend heureuse. Dis-toi qu'elle est comme une somnambule et faut pas la réveiller brusquement.
After that, I saw Marcello Mio, the new film by Christophe Honoré, and this is about Chiara Mastroianni, the daughter of famed movie stars Marcello Mastroianni and Catherine Deneuve. Marcello Mastroianni, a giant of Italian cinema, famed for his stone-cold, cool guy performances in La Dolce Vita and 8½. And of course, Catherine Deneuve, known for her amazing works in the French cinema, mostly my favorites being with Jacques Demy, The Umbrellas of Cherbourg, The Young Girls of Rochefort. Both are icons of the screen. And Chiara Mastroianni has big shoes to fill being the daughter of both of them. And that's kind of what this movie's about. It is a Nepo baby existential crisis as Chiara Mastroianni, finding that she cannot identify as herself. She has to be the child of Marcello and Catherine. She ends up embracing that, taking on the role of Marcello Mastroianni, and dresses as her father, pretends to be her father, acts as him on film. And this film kind of follows that whole existential crisis and the ensuing crisis that happens in her family as her mother reckons with the ghost of the past. But while there's a lot of interesting ideas at play here, this is just a boring film to watch. It's not doing anything new. The ideas aren't being presented in an interesting way. It is just a bland presentation of a few interesting ideas, a few metatextual ideas. This is weekday matinee, plays to the 60 to 80-year-old women movie. It's fine, but it just does nothing special, and I'm definitely not going to remember much about it aside from some very cool ideas of meta cinema. And the final film that I saw today was Parthenope, the new film by Paolo Sorrentino, a film that I had been widely speculating as a potential major contender for the Palm, major contender for some other awards down the road. A24 purchased this one, and I thought that that might be a good sign that this could make big waves. But this film is a mess. It is a Bardo-level crazy misfire. The film follows the story of a young woman named Parthenope, named after the spirit of the city of Naples itself. Parthenope is a beautiful young woman. She is desired by all, and also she's incredibly smart, and that's what the movie's about. It's like Paolo Sorrentino is just discovering that beautiful women can be intelligent too. This is the first time Paolo Sorrentino has made a film with a woman as the protagonist, and it's kind of clear why he hasn't. It's almost like this is the first time he's really conceptualizing women as people. And maybe this is harsh to say. I'll talk about some good elements of it. For one thing, on a formal level, this is beautiful. This is a stunning work of art. The cinematography is gorgeous, with lighting that is just sublimely beautiful and a camera that floats from place to place, capturing some of the most gorgeous images of southern Italy that you'll ever see. And the music, oh my god. It's somewhere between the Sufjan Stevens songs from Call Me By Your Name and the haunting horns of If Beale Street Could Talk, with just a touch of Babylon's themes in there too. When I say this is one of the best scores I've heard in years, I am not exaggerating. This is gorgeous. But this formal mastery, this incredible work, is in service of something so hollow and frankly downright gross. There's one moment near the end of the film, which I won't spoil, that genuinely had me awestruck. Who thought this was a good idea? You'll know it when you see it. This is going to be one of the most memed movie moments of the year. So Parthenope, not a good one. Not going to be predicting this one for any awards whatsoever. But again, worth seeing. for the visuals and the audio. Anyways, that ends my day. I'm just hanging out on the beach. I took an earlier day. I'm gonna go home and edit so that I can release this for you tomorrow. Now, what am I seeing tomorrow? Well, I'm seeing Anora, Grand Tour, Motel Destino, multiple films that I can't wait to tell you all about. But anyways, until next time, my name is Matt. Thank you for joining me at the Cannes Film Festival. This has been Fantasy Film Ball.